Hello and welcome to the Newsroom with Sana. I'm Sana Maqbool, and we're going to be taking a look at a few very important stories that are affecting the international community. We know, of course, that there is a very important talks that are scheduled in Doha between Pakistan and the Taliban regime in Afghanistan, and the delegation by Pakistan is going to be leaving for Doha tomorrow to hold these peace talks with the Afghan Taliban regime. The ceasefire has been extended, and this is a possibility for mediation that was earlier also put forward. And Qatar seems to be moving forward with this hosting and, of course, a mediation of talks. But there remains to be a lot of discussions that will then enable whether or not there can be a positive trajectory forward, and for the Afghan Taliban regime to ensure that their soil is not used against Pakistan or any other territory for that matter. Next, we're also going to be taking a look at what is happening in the international community as well, with the way that Mr. Trump has also talked to Vladimir Putin just before his meeting with the Ukrainian head, which is happening shortly at the White House, where discussions around particularly Tomahawk missiles for use against Russia are going to be discussed. And it seems there is a presentation that is prepared for him, but the kind of rhetoric that we see now shifting after his conversation with Putin is then going to decide whether or not he will go through with it and whether this phone call changes what he earlier might have planned. And lastly, we're also going to take a look at what is happening between the US and Venezuela, with Mr. Trump ordering covert operations by C.I.A. And there have been a number of aspects with regards to this decision that he has been asked as well. And there is a lot of discussion in terms of why exactly has that been authorized. But there seems to be a lot of reasonings that is given by the Trump administration. What cost will the US will have to pay for this regard, and whether or not the president has the authority to do so, and then again the ways that it's going to impact the current regime in Venezuela are all going to be the focuses of our discussion today. So we're going to be beginning our first segment with what is happening between Pakistan and Afghanistan, and the ceasefire is of course welcome, but what will happen in the talks? For that, we've been joined by Air Commodore retired Mr. Khalid Chisti. Thank you for joining us, Chisti Saab, and I want your take first on what is expected from these talks, because it's not the first time that we have engaged with the Afghan Taliban regime. Of course, calls have been made previously as well. A lot of different mechanisms, including jirgas and other immediate stakeholders, have also discussed with the Afghan Taliban regime that they need to assure Pakistan that they are being protected from any threats emerging from Afghanistan. But what we have seen, and what the Prime Minister has also reiterated, is that this continues, and it is allowing India and its spoiler elements to also operate from Afghanistan. So what is your expectation from these talks, whether or not we'll be able to see a way forward with the Taliban regime?
Thank you very much, Sana, for inviting me. You see, the expectations, I believe, in short and crisp, I expect something positive to come out. And there is a reason behind that, what I'm saying. The reason is that traditionally we have only resorted to protest, negotiation, diplomatic efforts, and all engagements indirectly or directly with Taliban. This time the things are a little different. This time we have imposed a prohibitive price against Taliban. We have shown our resolve, and we have shown our capability. You see, whenever you negotiate with any confronting element sitting across the table, he or she or they will only come back to you in your terms in case they know the price of the failure of the negotiation. That's one. They already been told that we have the resolve and we have the will, because these are the two basic ingredients to sit on a negotiation table. And these two ingredients Pakistan has lived up to has gone with the position of strength. Because earlier we had been talking to Taliban directly or indirectly only through verbal communication. This time we have shown the might, we have shown the resolve, we have shown the capability, and we have inflicted a reasonably substantial blow to them. So I think this time the Taliban should have realized that Pakistan can use this force to meet the objectives. Obviously, if the peace negotiation fails, there is going to be a price tag for them. And I hope and pray and good sense prevails, although I must add here, there is a huge lot of incentive being offered by India on the other side, in the financial terms, in the development terms, in the infrastructure development, the training of the troops or whatever. But that can be put aside in case especially Qatar exerts her pressure on them because they have a huge influence in the region. I think they come back, add on to Saudi influence, and if we can add somewhat Chinese influence, probably the things would be better. That is what I believe. And the reason that I've just mentioned, I hope and pray the good sense prevails both sides, and particularly on Afghan side, because we have always had a good intentions and sane voice and against, and no intentions to fight continued war against the Taliban.
Right, absolutely. And Shisham, you mentioned the influence that countries like Qatar and Saudi Arabia have and exert on the Afghan Taliban, but that has always existed. And so I want your take on why and how do you think it will be different this time for these countries to actually put forward their influence? What stakes are involved for them to do so?
Because we have gone alone in hitting the targets inside. This is the first time ever Pakistani armed forces have done that. We had never done that before. And that is what I submitted to you earlier in the question one, that they never realized, they underestimated us on two fronts. One, that Khan thought that we do not have either the capability, and even if you have the capability, we do not have the will and resolve to hit back. Exactly the same thing, same mistake the Indians did in May 2025. They also underestimated our capability or maybe the resolve, and they thought that we are not going to come back and they will be able to make something new normal by hitting so-called terrorist camps inside Pakistan and continue to make it a new normal whenever they wish to hit us. And this is the time we come back on the Taliban with a very heavy hand, not to our choice, I must add here. We do not take pleasure in hitting inside Afghanistan. We do not claim that as a victory, but we claim that as an obligation. That was a must. That was a surgery that was needed, and it was good for the patient. And I hope and pray that good sense prevails.
Absolutely, we hope the same. But there's also, of course, the element of Indian spoilers existing. You talked about this earlier as well, the incentives also for the Afghan Taliban regime. And so when we see this nexus developing and the kind of proxy war that the Afghan Taliban regime seem to be fighting, how exactly will this be balanced by the involvement or mediation of other countries with the way that they're interacting with regional players, including India, and making sure that they're able to balance all of that?
I think we need to show not only the resolve that we want to solve this problem, we also must reiterate that we traditionally, just look at 40 years back, then when 3 million Afghans were obviously displaced, they were not only housed, unlike Iran, who had created a barbed wire around them and kept them in confined camps, we did not do that. We opened our markets to them, the houses for them, education, medical centers, and it opened everything for them as it was for any Pakistani under the given circumstances. We never differentiated in 40 years. That is unfortunately led them to penetrate into our society. Obviously, that is also the reason that they brought in the weapons, the drugs, and many other ills in the society. And we are still paying the price. We need to probably assure them that we have had. And one more thing, Sana, I must add here. Afghan Foreign Minister Muttaqi said that if Pakistan wants to confront with us, it must look at the history and look at what we did to Soviet Union, the British, the Americans, and the NATO. There is no similarity in that. Let me show. Why is there no similarity? Because these forces, the NATO, US, Soviet Union, and English people, when they were occupying, they had occupied their land. On the contrary, we had offered them our land. That is what I'm trying to say. In the meantime, they need to realize that we housed them for three decades, over 3 decades. So I think that point should work out logically. And if they want to continue, they've seen our resolve that we've had enough of it. We've run out of patience because the lives that we have lost, almost 90,000, hundreds and thousands of families which have been affected because of that, and probably will not be able to take it anymore. That is what I said. It gives us a clear position of strength at the table of negotiation. And Qatar and other friends should also realize that it's a threshold, which is probably the tallest threshold that Pakistan has reached. And they must bring them down to those terms which are, and we are not demanding, by the way, much about it. We are not asking their land. We are not asking them to get, we are not asking them to pay us something. We are only saying that stop this terrorism from your side, or otherwise we will find some solution which may not be to the liking of both sides.
Right. Mr. Chisti, stay with us and we'll continue this discussion. But let us also welcome in the newsroom Zahir Shirazi, who's an Afghan affairs expert. Thank you very much, Mr. Zahir, for being a part of the show today. Your take first on what it is that will convince the Afghan Taliban regime in making sure that they follow through with the assurances that they have given previously and the assurances that any country needs to give to another. Where do you think that this particular influence can exist for them to understand the situation and to follow through?
Well, I think Pakistan don't need to convince the Taliban leadership. Pakistan has to deal with them. I think Pakistan needs solid guarantees that they have to follow the Doha Accord as well as to live as peaceful neighbors. There is no other way. Importantly, I think there is a two-point agenda in the talks which the Qatar is holding, and one point is simply that the terrorist hideouts inside Afghanistan, and there is a confirmed report from the UN Security Council in July 2024 that there are 8 provinces of Afghanistan which are inhabited by these militant groups like BLA, ISK, TTP, and a number of others who are threatening the regional countries, especially the neighboring countries of Afghanistan, even China and Central Asian republics. The second main point on the agenda of talks would be the Afghan government's connivance with India, allowing its soil to be used against Pakistan as a proxy battlefield. Because we have seen the western border has repeatedly been used by the Indian proxies in the form of BLA, in the form of TTP, and even not only cross-border terrorism, but there is a financial terrorism, economic terrorism, as well as water terrorism on our western border. The second thing is Pakistan has shown a lot of restraint. I think it has used all diplomatic channels. The recent Moscow format, it was very much clear. They had clarified to the Kabul administration that the militant groups like BLA, TTP, maybe Al-Qaeda, they have to be taken to task. But again, Amir Khan Muttaqi was reluctant to accept even. This recent report had even mentioned the proper villages and towns where these terrorists are hiding. About 6,000 TTP militants, their presence in Afghanistan has been also confirmed by this report, and perhaps it has been communicated to the Kabul administration. Now, the real problem is perhaps the Kabul administration is, feeling that they are perhaps too much powerful, maybe because of the Indian support, the recent visit of Amir Khan Muttaqi to India. Actually, it was a red line which the Kabul administration has crossed. We have some sore ties with even the Karzai government, with Ashraf Ghani, but not to this level that there would be a constant attacks on our borders. There would be a organized terrorism on our borders. Just like a couple of minutes ago, the maybe Pakistani security forces have targeted the hideouts of Hafiz Gul Bahadur near the Pak-Afghan zero line. Hafiz Gul Bahadur was involved in today's attack, which had left more than 8 soldiers dead. So I think if these attacks are continuing, talks would not be succeeding. And I think this ceasefire would be only fragile. What Pakistan need now is solid guarantees from Qatar, from Saudi Arabia, even from the friends like China, who had a lot of investment both in Pakistan and even in Afghanistan. So it's time now. We have to be realistic. We have to deal with it. There is no need of speaking, passively with the Kabul administration. And honestly, if we realize all these
point, but
issues.
I want your take on how exactly are you looking for the guarantees from these countries? What would a guarantee look like? Because there are, of course, a lot of stakes that are involved for a peaceful and stable Afghanistan, not just for Pakistan, but other countries as well. And we have these countries like Qatar and China offering for mediation. Of course, Doha is also hosting these talks. But in terms of the guarantees that they can provide, as you said, I want to understand what exactly would that mean on ground in terms of the contribution that these countries make. If there is a violation by the Afghan Taliban regime, if there continues to be attacks coming in from within Afghanistan, what can these countries possibly do?
And perhaps if Doha or Saudi Arabia is not willing to, convince Taliban for that, I think this is the last chance which Pakistan has given to the peace process, because Pakistan has no choice. Either it has to root out these militant hideouts or it has to face similar attacks again. When it comes to China and Russia, Iran, they have also, communicated to Kabul that if it wanted to have CPAC, it wanted to have CASA 1000 extension, if it wants to be part of the development process which is going on till Central Asian republics, the UAP railway lines from Mazar to Landi Kotal. I think these are all things which are only linked to the peaceful environment. And if Kabul is constantly harboring these militant groups, it's not possible to extend any kind of development activities and spend more money on it. But like this is a small group. I think the Kandahar Taliban are only a small group. Even Sirajuddin Haqqani is not on board on these issues. It's for sure. There are reports that there is a severe bickering among the Taliban leadership even. Gulbadin Ikpatyar, another prominent key jihadi commander, he is not on board on these attacks which the Kandahar Taliban are prompting or they are supporting. So I think there are a number of issues internally. I think the Kabul Taliban are really in a very dangerous situation. The people have started rising. Now they are asking questions. Hundreds of vehicles are stranded on both sides of the border, and those traders, they are really annoyed with what the Afghan Taliban are, forcing the country into an unwanted war.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mr. Zahir Shah Shirazi, for joining us and being up for discussion. There is, of course, a lot of mistrust as to whether or not the ceasefire will hold, and we all want that these talks succeed. But there is a lot of concern as to what happens when the Taliban regime does not appreciate that or withhold the kind of discussions that are going to take place. Much of that remains to be seen. Chisti Saab, I'd like your take on this, particularly when we talk about better sense prevailing, as you were talking earlier. It is something that we require from all parties. And historically speaking, we haven't seen much of that, whether it's a willingness issue or a capacity issue. There seems to be a lot of the Afghan Taliban regime that has created this mistrust of what happens. In case the talks fail and in case the attacks continue emanating from within Afghanistan, what are Pakistan's options?
You see, Sana, I said it in the beginning and I said it before in your program also that whatever we are doing, particularly the armed forces that I'm talking about, we are not doing it by choice. We're not doing it by because of player. We do not go into, we're not go into counting this as a victory. We are doing it as a compulsion. And this is what I'm trying to say. And if they continue to escalate the tension, obviously, Pakistan is left with no choice, as I said, as a compulsion. We'll have to upscale. It's not in our hand to upscale the ladder and go and hit further deeper targets or carry out targets in those areas which have not been hit yet. That's not the preference. But unfortunate part is that the Afghan government is not understanding what are the feelings. Like Shirazi Saab was saying, the people are not against Pakistan. They remember what Pakistan did for them in the last 4 decades. That is why even I heard that there were calls for a strike or a protest against Pakistan attack, but they have not been really given any kind of attention by the Afghan people. Because the people do realize they want trade, they want peace, they want the business to go on day-to-day life. And especially for a country which is landlocked, which is obviously depending from the supply of food and other items from Pakistan border, because the northern border is obviously very hilly and risky. Southward, Iran has a lot of sanctions. The best option they have is Pakistan border. And I think I don't even understand what's the wisdom behind escalating talk.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Khalid Chisti, for joining us and being a part of the newsroom today. There are a lot of concerns still that remain, and what Mr. Chisti was referring to is that Pakistan, of course, has to uphold its own protection, the citizens, and the priority that is of any country. And it is something that is zero tolerated by Pakistan, that there is any attack. And this is not something that will go ahead well with any country. And so a peaceful and stable Afghanistan is not just something that Pakistan is demanding. It is something that the international community must understand is a necessity. And that if the talks fail, unfortunately, the options that remain with Pakistan are going to be very, very limited. But we hope that they don't, and we hope that there is a possibility of a future and a peaceful Afghanistan. We'll take a short break here and be back with more. Welcome back to the newsroom with Sana. We're now going to be taking a look at what is happening between the United States, Russia, and Ukraine. It seems that after the success of the peace process by Mr. Trump in the Middle East, he's now aiming for peace in Ukraine, but that seems to be a tougher challenge. There is going to be a meeting shortly happening at the White House with the Ukrainian head of state meeting, Mr. Trump, but it seems to have been followed by a conversation on telephone by Mr. Trump and Putin that may have changed the situation for the Ukrainian leadership. It seems that the demand of the Tomahawk missiles that are long range and can penetrate inside Russia is something that was the hope and expectation of the discussion with Mr. Trump. But whether or not that will see through remains to be seen, because after the conversation with Putin, Mr. Trump's rhetoric may have changed a little bit. He said that we need the missiles as well. So he's going to see what he decides. And so it remains to be seen how the war will alter and what Mr. Trump's role is going to be in this discussion. And for that, we've been joined by Mr. Sajid Tarar, a political analyst from the US. Thank you very much, Mr. Sajid, for being part of the newsroom today. Your take on what the Trump administration seems to be eyeing on when it looks at Ukraine and Russia. There seems to be a change of stance, at least in words, that we're hearing from Mr. Trump as to what his meeting is going to go down like with the Ukrainian head of state. What do you think will be the outcome? Do you think that the missiles are going to be given by the US to Ukraine?
This will be the second summit within very short 7-8 months. You have seen the first summit was in Alaska, and then this is a second summit. And yesterday they spoke more than 1 hour, President Putin and President Trump. And today the Ukrainian president is coming to the Oval Office. And to me, the Tomahawk missiles, the long-range weapons, that's part of the negotiation tactic, creating a pressure for Russia that if you don't stop, this is a second option we have. But I'm very hopeful because Donald Trump has tried his best. The main focus was Gaza and the Ukraine. These were the two bigger conflicts and wars that Donald Trump has been facing. Here I want to mention he inherited all of these wars. Last presidents, President Obama and President Biden, had a very weak foreign policy, and the four countries have been taking a full advantage: India, Russia, China, and Israel. And Donald Trump is trying to resolve it. Donald Trump is trying to clean the mess which he has inherited since he has come into the White House. So this is a remarkable. Every American is very proud that we have a president who's a peace-loving president who's interested in leaving a legacy of a peacemaker instead of creating issues.
Right. Mr. Tarar, there is a lot of concern as to how then the situation will evolve, given the fact that this conversation, as you were just mentioning, has just happened between Putin and Mr. Trump. Does that seem to put into equation the dynamics that the US and Russia has vis-a-vis Ukraine? Does it seem to be a tilt that we can see and perhaps a hesitancy to go ahead with providing weapons to Ukraine?
Of course, ultimately, it's not only a bluff. If the point comes up, if the President Putin does not agree with the terms, the President Trump has a plan to put on a table. Ultimately, then America won't have any choices. And you know, you probably have seen this war has been a long war. There were expectations. There was a American intelligence flavor. They used to say that the Kyiv will fall in 3 days, and many other things. But it is a big mess today, and President Trump has said again and again that 5,000 to 7,000 soldiers, they are dying per week, and it has to be stopped. But I believe it. If the President Putin does not agree with the whatever the plan Donald Trump has to bring on a table, ultimately America won't have any choice working with the European Union and the Ukraine to provide them the long-range weapons.
Perspective, what is the current dynamic between Trump and Putin? Because it seems that the rhetoric keeps on changing with what Mr. Trump is saying. At least that's what we see. And so I want your take on what you really think is going on inside. Are they on good terms with each other? Does the United States work well with Russia? How exactly is the foreign policy situation, and particularly the relationship between the two leaders?
I have observed that Donald Trump, even then he has said it again and again, even then the few days ago when he was sitting with the Turkish president, that he respects the tough leaders, he respects the brave leaders, and he praised Tayyip Erdogan. At the same time, he has a relationship with Putin. They call each other by the first names. And the way the first summit, the way the red carpet protocol was given to Putin, he kept standing there and waiting for him. And then President Putin came there with a huge delegation and his speech. But the two main differences in between both people, President Putin does not have to worry about his political capital in Russia. He doesn't have to run for the public office versus Donald Trump here. He has to stay within the lines because the Republican Party lines, within the Pentagon lines. So ultimately, the Donald Trump want to work with the Putin, and plus at the same time, the Putin is a very seasoned politician. You can say that, being a part of the KGB and been into the power corridors, he has a lot of experience on his shoulders. He has calculated Obama in Syria. He knew the Putin the way they left Afghanistan, and so he has been taking advantage of all of these things. Versus Donald Trump, the way recently he has flexed his muscle over Iran and many other things, and he's not hesitant to use the Pentagon's power. Ultimately, his doctrine is achieving peace through strength. So both parties, Russia and the U.S., has a strong leaders, and now let's see what happens. But I want to stay optimistic. I'm expecting that they will be getting close to the final deal.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Shazia, for joining us and being a part of the discussion. We've also been joined by Ms. Shazia Malik, who's an international affairs expert, to talk on the same issue. Thank you for being part of the newsroom, Ms. Shazia. Your take on what Mr. Zelensky can be expecting now, since the telephonic conversation has already happened with Mr. Trump and Putin. Should he have no hopes for getting those Tomahawk missiles that he came all the way for?
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity, Sana. Yes, he has been asking for Tomahawks, but you need to understand that there is a lot of training and then shifting of these Tomahawks. They are involved, and it will take a long time. Now, what U.S. has already, committed to them is ERAM missiles and ATACMS, and it is easier to transport them. However, they have limited, reach. ERAM have 460 kilometers reach, whereas ATACMS has 300 kilometers. Of course, Tomahawks can go deep down in Russia because its reach is 1,600 kilometers. But do you think that after talking to, Mr. Putin, is it feasible at all for Russia to agree for U.S. to give Tomahawks to Ukraine? Also, what do you think? What are the stakes over here? Do you think that Ukraine has a say at all in this whole discussion? If Mr. Trump tells him that the peace deal will only come at the behest of leaving all his territories to Russia as is, for which they have been fighting for 3 years, do you think Mr. Zelensky will have any other way? So the discussion with Putin is going to be at a very different level. Mr. Trump definitely seems to be a little frustrated with Mr. Putin, and because he wanted to end this war within 24 hours when he was on his election trail. That's what he said. And this has taken long. He himself said, Trump said, that Mr. Putin is a very good man. He's a friend, but I don't know why he's lingering this war. So Putin is a very smart politician himself. Also, he is going to put forward his demands. And so I am not really very much sure if Tomahawks will be, agreed by the Russian administration. Also, an earlier meeting with Mr. Marco Rubio and the Russian, counterparts are taking place. So I don't really know what there and then will be decided, because the Trump and Putin discussion is going to take place later on. So this will lay the foundation of how the talks will move forward. I'm very much, not really very optimistic that Tomahawks will be given to Ukraine at all.
Right. Ms. Shazia, what then seems to be the plan? Because Mr. Trump wants to be a champion of peace, and he claims that he has supported and ended about 8 wars in his tenure, and he wants to solve this issue as well. And like you said, if he does come up with any plan, even if that entails offering all of the territory, it's not like Ukraine has much of a choice. But what is really the plan, do you think, in his mind as to what he wants to achieve in the region and whether or not that will be acceptable to Putin?
Definitely, the appeasement policy really works a lot. You remember, Melania had some talks with Mr. Putin, and he said that, you need to take care of Ukrainian children. And then Putin talked in very high words, in very, appreciative. He was very appreciative to Mr. Trump, and Mr. Trump got very, happy about it. So I'm sure Putin is going to use more of these appeasement things. And I mean, of course, they would like to keep all the territories that they have taken. Now, for Mr. Trump, it is very, very essential to stop this war, because that is his promise on the election trail, as he said. And then he also says that this is going to be the biggest ceasefire, because after Second World War. So he wants this to be to be stopped, this war. He wants to stop this war at any cost, and this is what he's going to say. Of course, the European Union, even today, they have talked about the defense plan and all that, how to save ourselves from the Russian attacks. But Mr. Putin somehow knows how to appease Mr. Trump. So whatever plan he puts forward, or even before that, whatever talk takes place between Marco Rubio and the Russian counterparts, I think that is going to set the tone. And definitely, like I said earlier, Zelensky doesn't have much say in this. He has to, if he wants to stop this war and ceasefire to be permanent, definitely they have to look at what Putin's conditions are. So I'm sure he's very, very keen. Mr. Trump is very, very keen. Like you mentioned yourself, he wants a Nobel Prize. He wants to stop this war that has been going on for 3 weeks.
Right. Thank you very much, Ms. Shazia Malik, for joining us and being part of the newsroom today. We'll find out soon enough what really is going to happen with the meeting between Mr. Trump and Mr. Zelensky. But of course, as we were just discussing, there seems to be a slim chance of him getting the Tomahawk missiles that he earlier hoped to get, because there seems to be a discussion that is put forward between Trump and Putin, and then of course a meeting that is supposedly going to be held in Budapest in about 2 weeks' time. And that may be deciding the future of where the situation is going to take. But one thing is for sure, that Mr. Trump wants to enhance peace in the region and once again hold true his own flag, that he is going to be the flag bearer of peace. Whether or not that happens remains to be seen, but we'll be here to talk about it and see how it goes. We'll take a short break right now and be back with our last story. Welcome back to the newsroom with Sana. We're now going to be taking a look at what is happening between the United States and Venezuela, with Mr. Trump authorizing the CIA covert operations to take place in the country. And there have been major concerns as to why exactly this decision has been made. The Venezuelan head of state, Maduro, has said that it seems to be a plan of regime change, a statement that Mr. Trump denies. There is a lot of concern as to how the situation will evolve itself in the future and what really can happen in terms of peace in the region. For that, we've been joined by Mr. Faiz, who's a foreign affairs expert. Thank you, Mr. Rehman, for joining us today. Your take on what you think is happening at the moment. It seems that at one place, when we take a look at the way that the opposition leader in Venezuela has just gotten a Nobel Peace Prize, she has also cited Mr. Trump and has shared the sentiment of him championing for peace. But at the other side, we see that the president in Venezuela is talking about a possible regime change, something that he fears and something the U.S. denies. So what, in your opinion, is really going on, and what seems to be the objectives of the Trump administration?
Thank you, Sana. Good to be back on your show. His fears aren't far-fetched. You've seen in the past that, Americans have made statements. They don't recognize his government, his victory in the recent elections that he won overwhelmingly from his perspective. So America doesn't recognize him as the winner, and they have actually somebody that they recognize as the genuine and the real president of that country. So it's been going on for a while. It's not just Trump administration. It's been pretty bad since even I think the Bush Jr. times. So you've seen several things going back and forth before this president. The very famous President Chavez, who went to the United States and actually did some exorcism for the then president, which was I think George Bush Jr., the second Bush in the White House. So it's not new. Yeah, what's new is these attacks, and the known sixth attack on one of the boats in the Caribbean Sea belonging to Venezuela. So, and then they openly recognize and acknowledge those attacks. Yes, we are the ones targeting those boats. What's happening? It's a basically multi-pronged effort to destabilize the regime, and maybe trying to change the regime. So it's not far-fetched, even though the Americans will continue to deny it. But you see some efforts, if at least looking at the history.
Right. What seems to be the way forward, especially when we talk about the C.I.A. operations taking place? Where exactly will that play on ground? What is the role going to be of these operations, and what it is that they hope to achieve?
Sana, America has a tremendous power in the region. It's very close to the country, and you see, and Venezuela is also surrounded by some other countries, which aren't too adversarial towards the United States. So they get a lot of cooperation in the region against Venezuela. But it's, at the same time, Venezuela is an important country. I mean, it's one of the major oil exporters in the world. Its economy basically is not doing too bad. But it's infested with crimes, drugs, mob violence, and what have you. So yes, I mean, CIA is one of the agencies in the US which want to destabilize the regime, not the country itself per se, but the regime. And they're so desperate to change the regime, but they have tried it before. They have failed. What's different this time? Maybe, the current president is not that charismatic. Maybe he's not that popular. And you see now awarding of ignoring Gaza and other flashpoints, even like what's very close to his heart, the Ukrainian crisis. A Nobel Peace Prize Committee, I mean, they chose a person from Venezuela. So of course, they want to highlight that issue, and I won't say that it was maybe with some consideration of the U.S. policies in that region. But of course, it has to do something with that goal in mind. That yes, they want to change the regime in the country, and they've been very outspoken about it recently. So what CIA is doing, basically just supporting their goal, the stated goal that they don't accept, they don't recognize the current regime as genuine and as legit, and they have a president, in their opinion, who has actually won the elections, and they want him to be in power.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Faiz Rehman, for joining us and being a part of the newsroom and sharing your views with us. There seems to be a lot of concern as to what really will happen. While there are talks of possible regime change and a fear that has been cited by the Venezuelan head of state, it is something that the U.S. denies, and there seems to be other reasons as to why the Trump administration is going ahead with these operations. But what remains to be seen is that the way that the Trump administration has been talking about peace in the international community, how is it that they're going to be balancing out their relationship with Venezuela, and what is going on inside the country. That's all that we have from the newsroom today. We'll now see you tomorrow.